A boy swings his axe and smashes open the wall of his house. He was just trying to find the source of the strange noises coming from the walls late at night, but beneath the plaster, there weren't any bricks or stones at all. Instead, there was one body after another, sealed away for decades. Every inch of them was carved with dark magic runes, packed tightly into the walls. And only now did he finally understand. This old house, with rent that was absurdly cheap, was never an ordinary home. It used to be a funeral parlor, and the place where his family was living had once been the morgue where bodies were kept. Today, I'm taking you on an immersive journey through this top-tier horror film based on a true story, The Mortuary Haunting. The story follows a family of 5, weighed down by terminal illness. To give her son Matt better treatment for his cancer, the mother spent everything she had, and moved the family into a house near the hospital. She thought this would get her son the timely care he needed, but she had no idea that ever since they moved in, Matt's condition not only failed to improve, it grew stranger by the day. Because moving day was so hectic, mother and son only did a quick tidy up before collapsing onto floor mats and falling into a deep sleep. But Matt had barely drifted off when a strange sound suddenly jolted him awake. Dragging his frail, sickly body, he followed the sound down to the basement. There, he found a cabinet locked shut. Staring at his own gaunt, wasted reflection in the mirror, Matt lost himself for a moment. That strange sound from before was completely forgotten, but the very next second, Matt finally realized, everything just now had only been a nightmare. Maybe he didn't want his illness to burden his family, or maybe fate had already decided things. But when it came time for everyone to pick their rooms, Matt actually chose that strange basement himself. Still, that cabinet, the one that wouldn't open no matter what, left both him and his mother deeply puzzled. Matt pressed his face to the glass and peered inside, but he still couldn't see a thing. They figured the cabinet wasn't really a problem, so they didn't give it another thought. But the moment Matt looked down, what he saw sent a chill straight through him. His mother, though, just kept mopping with a smile, completely oblivious to the blood at her feet. Yet in the blink of an eye, everything snapped back to normal. Quiet, in an unsettling way. Matt assumed his illness was getting worse and he was seeing things, so once again, he brushed it off. Later, mother and son headed to the kitchen to cook, and Matt pitched in with the chores. But then he noticed something bizarre. The plate he just set down had somehow returned to the cabinet in an instant. He thought his mother had put it back, but she insisted she hadn't touched a thing.
That was my fault.
Staring at the plate that vanished and then suddenly shattered, Matt couldn't help but feel a wave of panic. Now he was certain. His condition was steadily getting worse. So, not wanting to worry his mother, he went to bed early. But before long, Matt broke into a heavy sweat, his whole body convulsing, as if trapped in some terrible nightmare. And finally, he shot upright in bed. Only this time, he saw a strange, sinister-looking boy inside the cabinet in front of him. The instant Matt met his gaze, he was pulled into the boy's consciousness. There, he saw a strange old man, and a corpse covered in carved runes. The old man chanted incantations while carving symbols into the body with a small knife. These weren't ordinary Latin letters. They looked like a set of terrible curses. Once the curses covered every inch of skin, the old man pried open the corpse's eyes and cruelly cut away the eyelids with scissors. Thankfully, everything that just happened was only another of Matt's nightmares. But right then, Matt suddenly stood up, no longer in control of his own body. His face blank, he slowly walked toward the cabinet and tried to open the sealed door. Matt's hand looked as if it had been scalded by boiling water, a huge blister swelling up. Seeing this, his mother rushed him to the hospital. The doctor asked whether he'd been experiencing hallucinations lately. If he was seeing things frequently, it could mean his condition was deteriorating. But Matt didn't tell the truth. As a late-stage cancer patient, he understood his own body better than anyone in the family, and he knew better than anyone just how hard his mother was working. So, not wanting to disappoint her, he lied to the doctor and said he wasn't having any hallucinations at all. But in the short time it took his mother to grab a bag from the car, Matt's body acted up again. His hands were smeared with rotting, foul-smelling flesh, crawling with sickening bugs. The horrifying hallucination flashed before his eyes, then vanished again in half a second. And every night, in the dead of quiet, Matt would be woken by that strange sound. The cabinet seemed to hold some kind of power, drawing him closer and closer. By the time his little brother came looking for him, it was already noon the next day. Sunlight streamed through the windows, lighting up the basement, yet a lingering, icy chill filled the room. Watching his little brother play, Matt suddenly ordered him to lie down at once. Then, with a cold, menacing look, he began cranking the gurney. At first, the boy thought his brother was just playing with him, but even when he was nearly dizzy, Matt still wouldn't stop. And it was right then that another hallucination appeared before his eyes. He saw a coffin, and a group of strange, eerie figures. As his brother screamed again and again, they began stuffing sacks into the coffin. Just as Matt tried to make out what it was, his brother's scream yanked him back to reality.
What's going on down here? What's the matter with you?
The screams and noise from the basement drew the father down from upstairs, but the moment he pushed the door open, a wave of dread washed over him. Chemical solutions draped in cobwebs, a rusted-out incinerator, dust-covered knives and pliers on the table. Everything pointed to one thing: this was no ordinary house. It was a long-abandoned funeral parlor.
Now I know why the rent was so cheap.
The father immediately pulled his wife aside and demanded to know whether she'd known why the house was so cheap, but her sincere, exhausted eyes seemed to tell him everything. From the very start, she had known full well, but to treat her son's terminal illness, she'd had to hide it all. With things at this point, the father couldn't say much more. He simply told the other children, patiently reassuring them, yes, this place used to be a funeral parlor, but that was all in the past. And to put the family at ease, the father took their hands and led them in prayer. But in that instant, another hallucination filled Matt's mind. He saw the boy from his nightmares, praying just like he was. But as time passed, the boy's expression suddenly twisted with agony, and the pain he was enduring transferred, through the hallucination, straight into Matt. He clutched his brother's and cousin's hands tightly, unable to snap out of it. Only when his brother, unable to bear it, wrenched his hand free did Matt slowly start to recover. His cousin figured he was just exhausted, so she took him back to his room. And it was only with his cousin, the one he was closest to, that Matt was willing to speak his true thoughts. He told her he'd been through so many strange things lately, and that each one might not be a hallucination at all, but real events that had happened in this funeral parlor. But hearing something so unbelievable, his cousin didn't just refuse to believe him. She thought Matt had lost his mind. Left with no other choice, Matt turned to a priest he'd met at the hospital. Listening to the strange things Matt had been through, the priest was instantly certain that something terrible would befall him, so he handed Matt his business card. Sure enough, that very night, the moment Matt got home, he found his family's rooms had transformed into something else entirely. Outside the door, the lights were bright as day, but inside, only a thin sliver of sunlight came through. As Matt stood there stunned, the boy suddenly appeared again. He looked as if something terrible had happened. Frantically packing his things to leave, Matt rushed to follow the sound, but heard an agonizing scream from downstairs. He chased after it at once, only to see the boy being viciously dragged into the morgue by that strange old man. Trembling, he opened the door, only to be met by a room full of corpses. Just as Matt's heart pounded with terror, the door behind him suddenly slammed shut. He tried to open it and escape, but the next second, he realized with horror that the corpses lying on the tables had all come back to life in an instant. They surrounded Matt, staring at him with eerie eyes. In the end, Matt couldn't take it anymore. Watching Matt act so unhinged, his cousin grew frightened. She didn't come to comfort him. Instead, she quickly took the two younger kids and left the room. His cousin pulling away shattered Matt completely, but at the same time, he finally realized that maybe none of this had much to do with his illness. It was tied to this house. So, to investigate, he went back to the priest and told him everything that had just happened. The priest seemed to have a realization, and told Matt something profound. When people are near death, they often see things ordinary people can't, but most of the time, those ghosts aren't as terrifying as you'd imagine. They were once ordinary people too, with unfinished wishes. Maybe only by asking what they truly want can the whole mystery be solved. After the priest's guidance, Matt was no longer as afraid as before. That very night, he even used his own mind to call out to the departed souls. Sure enough, the next second, in that very instant, a sea of flames surged into Matt's mind. The raging fire seemed to devour his body, leaving him unable to recover for a long time. He huddled in the corner, clawing his hands until they bled, his eyes filled with a nameless terror. When his mother came home and saw her son like this, worry flooded her heart. She rushed Matt to the hospital, only to receive devastating news after the tests. The cancer cells had spread to his brain, and he had just a few short months left. The doctor advised the couple to take Matt home to rest, and to prepare for a life that was about to fade away. Hearing this, the couple fell apart. They returned home helpless, crying through the entire night. And from that day on, Matt's condition grew worse and worse. Every night as he fell asleep, he'd dream of horrifying scenes, clinging to him like a nightmare he couldn't escape. And so, the next day came. Bored, the little brother suggested playing hide and seek with his little sister, but the boy had barely hidden in a cabinet when he suddenly felt something behind him. Hearing the screams from upstairs, Matt and his cousin rushed over. First, they rescued the boy from the cabinet, then went to the attic to check on the little sister. But in the gap of a loose floorboard, they unexpectedly found an old box. Inside were some shriveled, skin-like objects and a stack of yellowed photographs. The moment Matt saw these things, horrifying images flashed through his mind again, and those yellowed photos reminded him of the boy he'd seen in his visions.
I thought that I was hallucinating, but I've seen this kid almost every day since we've been here.
Hearing Matt describe the strange visions he'd been having, his cousin finally stopped treating him like a madman, and decided to investigate alongside him. His cousin guessed that if this funeral parlor was so cursed, there must have been plenty of news coverage back when the accident first happened. So the two of them set off for the nearby library and began digging through everything about the funeral parlor. After a good deal of searching, they did find, in an old newspaper, a report on the accident from years ago, and only then did Matt finally learn that the strange old man he kept seeing in his visions was the funeral parlor's former owner, John. The man not only looked vicious, his mind was twisted too. He loved studying the living and the dead alike, and was especially obsessed with so-called seance rituals. The boy Matt had seen in his visions was a medium John had kidnapped. Through several rounds of frenzied experiments, John's seances could not only speak with the dead, but even make long-for objects materialize, and even alter a person's fortune to some degree. Once word got out, John's reputation exploded overnight. Countless people sought him out, begging him to change their luck. But John didn't know that meddling in someone's fate again and again could trigger a severe backlash. Sure enough, during one later seance, John and the 4 people being channeled all died mysteriously in the blink of an eye, and the boy, Jonah, vanished from the face of the earth. It wasn't until 30 years later, when local authorities came to survey the cemetery near the funeral parlor for an expansion project, that a truly shocking mystery finally surfaced. They found that the more than 100 bodies in the cemetery had all vanished without a trace. Inside the graves were nothing but sandbags. This news had an eerie connection to one of Matt's earlier visions. He seemed to finally understand. The reason John's seances were so uncannily powerful was that they were driven by these very corpses. To get to the bottom of the details, Matt invited the priest to the house. The priest only had to glance inside the box to grasp the whole story. Start to finish, those shriveled, skin-like objects were, in fact, human eyelids. This was an extremely vicious form of witchcraft. Before each seance, John would secretly slip into the cemetery, steal a random corpse, and cut away its eyelids, so the dead soul could be used for his own ends. And every corpse whose eyelids were cut away for John's use would lose all chance of reincarnation, becoming a lost, wandering spirit trapped in this world. But if that was really the case, then where had John hidden all the bodies?
Perhaps buried outside the house. Perhaps it will help if we prayed for all those poor souls that died here.
The moment Matt placed his hand on the priest's, his body instantly connected with Jonah's soul, and he returned to the last ritual John ever held, witnessing the true cause of everyone's death. Jonah had been holding the client's hands, channeling spirits for them, but halfway through the ritual, Jonah's body suddenly began convulsing violently, and a massive surge of spiritual energy poured out of his mouth. Perhaps because too many of the dead had been used, the energy swelled and expanded out of control, until it finally detonated inside Jonah's mouth, burning everyone present alive. Before Matt could even come to his senses, his mother suddenly came home. Seeing this, the priest quickly explained who he was, but the mother, furious, wouldn't listen at all. To protect her son, she immediately ordered the priest to leave. Before he left, the priest still kindly warned her. He said there was a powerful evil force in this house, and it might very well take Matt's life. The only way to keep him safe was to move out as fast as possible. But even after the priest had spelled it out this clearly, the mother remained stubborn. Resolute, she showed the priest the door. And so, late that night, the family fell into a deep sleep. But as you'd expect, trouble came anyway. A cold, eerie wind suddenly blew into the cousin's room, and countless crows swirled and darted across the ceiling. Yet the moment the cousin woke, the crows vanished without a trace. But then she heard something stirring under the bed, so she carefully got up to check. It wasn't only the cousin. The sleeping mother was also jolted awake by a strange sound. Thinking it was her little daughter playing, she rolled over to glance at the bedside, only to find the entire room empty. She went to turn on the light. And only after seeing the spirits with her own eyes did the mother finally grasp just how terrifying this house was. She huddled on the bed, clutching her family, trembling, and right then, the whole house lost power. The mother knew that if this went on, her whole family would sooner or later be killed by the spirits. So that very night, she brought the priest to the house. The priest first took out an iron cross, then went from room to room, scanning each one. In Western folklore, iron is believed to hold the power to ward off evil, to sense unknown spirits, and to pinpoint their location. Sure enough, after searching, the priest detected something abnormal in the incinerator in the morgue. In that instant, the whole house was filled with eerie noises once more. Crows flew everywhere, doors rattled endlessly, and Matt's body was racked with excruciating pain. As the lights flickered wildly, a horrifying spirit stepped up behind the mother. But at the critical moment, the priest found Jonah's ashes in the incinerator just in time, and Matt finally recovered. The eerie phenomena vanished along with it. With the crisis over, the priest drove off with Jonah's ashes, and the family could finally get a good night's sleep. But somewhere no one was watching. Matt's body changed once again. At some point, every inch of his skin had become covered in countless eerie runes.
Stay here.
The mother rushed over at the sound, and the next second was horrified by the runes on her son's body. With no other option, she rushed him to the hospital. And it wasn't just Matt's family. The priest ran into something strange too. On his way to the church, Jonah's spirit suddenly appeared in his car. But the spirit didn't harm the priest. Instead, he told him how he had died. It turned out the failed seance brought not only the deaths of John and the 4 clients, but also the collective fury of hundreds of spirits. When John burned to death, the spirits whose eyelids he'd cruelly cut away lost all control. They instantly spread to every corner of the room, unleashing all their rage and resentment on the sole survivor, Jonah. With nowhere to run, Jonah could only crawl into the incinerator, hoping to escape through the other end. But just a step away from the exit, the incinerator door suddenly shut, and the flames roared up, burning him alive inside. Yet Jonah was kind by nature. Even dying in endless pain and struggle, he never held the slightest grudge. He knew those vengeful spirits were just victims too, and that the real culprit was that twisted man, John. So even after Jonah died and gained spiritual power greater than he'd had in life, he didn't hunt them down. And for every family that moved into the funeral parlor, he only used certain methods to make them leave quickly. It wasn't until Matt came along that Jonah finally found a chance at release. In the terminally ill Matt, he saw his former self. Because those 100 corpses weighed down this house, Jonah's soul had never been able to find release. And Matt, ravaged by illness, was imprisoned on a sickbed and in a basement that never saw the light of day. So the connection between them was no accident. It was a mutual reaching out, pushed along by fate. Jonah found the vessel that could help him find release. And Matt, through his connection with Jonah, found a meaning to life beyond the torment of illness. So after hearing the doctor pronounce his death sentence, Matt wasn't afraid at all. He picked up an axe and walked resolutely toward home. He wanted to save not only Jonah, but all the trapped spirits. First, he firmly sent his little brother and sister outside, then barricaded the door with tables and chairs. Then he grabbed the axe and, with all his strength, smashed at the boards and walls around him, hauling out every body inside. And to set them free, Matt set the entire house on fire. As the flames slowly spread, the trapped spirits were finally released. So to thank Matt, they gathered in a circle, focusing their spiritual power onto him, winning him a slim chance at rebirth. When the fire burned the old house to the ground, Matt's cancer miraculously healed, and Jonah's soul finally found peace. The most horrifying thing about this film was never the bodies in the walls. It was human greed, to gain power and wealth. The funeral parlor owner not only treated the dead as vessels, he even used a child as a tool. Stripping the dead of their dignity and imprisoning other souls is far more terrifying than any ghost in the movie. And what moves us most is that Matt, caught in the double torment of illness and the supernatural, ultimately chose to face his fear. When he bravely smashed open the walls to save the departed souls, he was really fighting back against his own fate. That's where today's story ends.